Tell me what's happening right now and what you anticipate in the days ahead.
Well, let's begin with the military situation. I mean, it's obviously bad. We're being attacked by a far superior power in terms of hardware and the amount of soldiers attacking. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not that worried about the military situation because, look, Ukraine is like a spring. So the harder you push, the harder the recoil will be. But what's more worrying is the humanitarian situation. So first of all, we're witnessing intentional damage, intentional violence against Ukrainian civilians. So only today, a horrifying figure has been released. Over 2,000 Ukrainian civilians, including up to 100 children, have been killed in the last 6 days. Civilians. We're talking only about civilians. And that's excluding the people in Mariupol. And we estimate there will be hundreds of dead there because Russia literally kind of destroyed part of the city today, literally leveled it to the ground. They are shooting at churches. And yesterday, I mean, to me, like the most shocking thing happened yesterday because President Putin, claims that he's denazifying Ukraine. But, the guy denazifying a country with a Jewish president shooting at a Holocaust memorial, I mean, that's difficult probably even for the Russians to process. Yet it happened. We had a cruise missile land at Babi Yar, which is, the world famous Holocaust memorial that has just been opened. The place where the Nazis, the real Nazis, have executed over 30,000 Jews. And Russia is shooting at that. They're shooting at churches, maternity wards. So that situation is getting really grim. And, that's more difficult to process than the military situation because, look, we'll kick him out sooner or later out of our country. But, it's the loss of life and the tragedy. That's a worrying part.
What is it that you need that's still on the table? I think you heard from the American president that closing the airspace, in his view, sets up conditions for World War III. I wonder your reaction to that, if you agree with that, and short of that, since he's taken it off the table, what you need.
Well, we definitely need our airspace closed one way or the other. My official reaction to that would be I fully agree because we're dealing with a potentially mentally unstable person, holding his finger on the red nuclear button. So obviously, NATO states or NATO as an alliance interfering in Ukraine might not be the best idea. But at the same time, let me remind you, Russia has been utilizing what's called a hybrid warfare for years now. So when they annexed Crimea, they just took all the insignia of the soldiers and just said, look, they are a little green man. So maybe there are ways around interfering directly. But it needs to be decided behind closed doors. Definitely, it's not something for the public to discuss. What Ukraine needs, though, obviously we need weapons, we need economic support, but there are two certain things I would actually appeal to the West to do urgently. First of all, I mean, I'm really worried about the psychological state of our civilians, especially women and children. So every little helps. I mean, I'll give you one example. For example, a friend of mine who's in charge of one of the humanitarian centers called Marina, she's breaking down. She's got PTSD. And I mean, I had the idea. She's a fan of Slipknot. So if Corey Taylor recorded a message to the people of Ukraine or to her, I mean, that would make the difference at the time of war. So why don't we get Western celebrities actually kind of recording those messages, hashtagging them, Stand With Ukraine, or probably even we'll provide you with numbers of individual civilians. Why not just give them a call and just support them? I mean, it's a great PR stunt, and at the same time, it might save somebody's life. And the second thing I would ask everyone in the West to do would be to appeal to your businesses to get out of Russia as quickly as possible, because every cent that's being invested or earned in Russia, on Russian territory, is in fact paying for the death of Ukrainian children. And that applies to everyone. I mean, I saw a few messages today from streaming services and fast food chains saying, no, we're not getting out of Russia. Well, guys, money is not as important as people's lives. And thousands of dead is just a statistic, but behind each one of those deaths. There's somebody's life, somebody's family, somebody's tragedy. And God forbid you ever have to live through that. So if you could help us with that, we'd really, really appreciate it. And thirdly, I mean, look, we need all the appeals to create those humanitarian corridors. So, for example, I got a call from a fund called Rinat Akhmetov Fund in Ukraine. It belongs to the richest guy in Ukraine, the richest entrepreneur. They've been fighting hard for the last 2 days to create a humanitarian corridor out of a town called Volnovakha. And, 600 people, including 2 people really close to me, got out without a humanitarian corridor, literally with like no documents, nothing. It's like +2 outside. They were wearing their underwear and T-shirts. That's it. Jumped in the car, saw an opening, ran for it. But there's 1,500 people still stuck there. And we need those corridors ASAP because, look, any military conflict sooner or later will end. And people's lives should not be lost because it drags on longer than it should.
How long are you prepared to stay there with your family and fight?
Well, we definitely prepared to fight. I mean, I said it the last time, like, look, every time, or at least once in your lifetime, you're going to be faced with a situation where you need to decide 2 things. First of all, who's the person looking at you from the mirror? Whether that person is real or somebody hypocritical and fake. So that's the first kind of answer and epiphany that you need to get. And the second decision that you need to make is like, look, if somebody wishes you, death, in effect, and that's what's happening in Ukraine. Like, where do you make your stand? I mean, do you keep running? Because, like, look, we can move to, I don't know, Bulgaria, Poland, but I keep saying that, like, it doesn't matter. It means that we're going to be faced with the same decision, not today, but like in 2 or 3 years' time. And, there's no dignity, there's no pride in running. I mean, like, look, it's your life, deal with it. And look, I'll give you a positive. I mean, I've read the comments after the last show, and I know people want something positive. So 2 stories. One really tragic, kind of shows you what it's like. The other one's really funny. So the tragic one, I mean, I got a call from the volunteers today, and luckily that situation's been resolved. In the city of Kharkiv, twins, 1-month-old twins, just got orphaned yesterday. So mom and dad both got killed yesterday by Russian bombs. So just imagine that situation, and like. That's what I love Ukraine for. I mean, nobody's left them. Nobody said like, Red Cross deal with it or something. People just started like sharing the message saying like, here's the number. Is anyone willing to take 2 kids in, but not temporarily? Are you ready to become parents? And by God, I nearly called. Okay, my wife probably would have killed me because we have 2 daughters and we have 2 families sheltering with us. But like, I nearly called. So that's a tragic story, but it gives you a sense of what it's like from the humanitarian side. Another funny story. I mean, 2 days ago, people in the village, some gypsies, stole a tank from the Russians. One of the most advanced Russian tanks got stolen by just gypsies. Camping out in the field. And like, look, I didn't believe that story at first, but there's a video. So it's been verified. And those kind of stories keep happening. And look, it gives you hope. And one kind of lesson that I've learned, from a week of this whole ordeal so far is like, if you try and get rid of, sadness, depression, desperation, whatever, it's just an experience, and like hopefully we're gonna learn from it and be better for it, and that if you adopt that kind of attitude, I mean, there's no need to run. I mean, it's gonna end well. You just have to know it.
What is, I mean, I guess I'm listening to you, and maybe you have an answer to this, but you are a former advisor to President Zelensky. I think he has surprised even Western allies with his steeliness and his sort of acceptance of whatever, exactly what you're articulating, that to embrace your fate. Where does that come from his part? And what I'm guessing you're not surprised by what the whole world is seeing in him.
I'm not surprised at all because, look, I've known him since 2018, and he's just an ordinary guy from the street from a central Ukrainian industrial town called Kryvyi Rih. And it's a kind of town where you grow up on the street, regardless of who you are, whether you're a comedian, whether you come from an academic family, you have to be tough to make it in that jungle. And, it's also, it gives you that injection of a no-nonsense attitude. So there's no time for hypocrisy. There's no time for bureaucracy. There's no time for fear. If there's a problem, face it head on and see what comes out of it. And he's like that. And that's good for Ukraine because, as I said last time, there are humans and there are politicians. If we had a politician now, we'd probably be signing, our surrender somewhere like outside of Moscow. So I'm not surprised at all. And plus, by the way, one person from the presidential office told me today, and I fully concur with that, one positive to come out of this war is the fact that you get to enjoy the little things you didn't notice. So I remember when I was doing keynotes on digital detox, I did an experiment. I switched my mobile phone off for 2 days. I literally heard the birds sing. They were singing before, I just didn't notice it. And now, look, I had the shower today. I got my first opportunity to shave today, so I'm clean shaven. And look, I shave daily, and it's not a big deal. I drink coffee daily. I eat oranges daily. I go for a walk daily. But now, because of that scarcity that's created by the war, it all tastes so good. It all feels so good. It's incredible. I mean, you live life to the fullest, and look, that gives you strength to solve this situation. And nights are tough because we have to go on patrol, even in the residential neighborhood where I live. But and I held a Kalashnikov for the first time in my life. Look, a guy from a boarding school in the middle of Leicestershire in Britain. My parents sent me there. Never thought in a million years that I would hold a Kalashnikov rifle.